Ladies, gentlemen, and well, so we've got some non-gentlemen followers that follow us based on some responses we get to some of the videos. I am joined today by the Vice President of Engineering at Ping, Paul Wood. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing well. It's good to see you, mate. It's been quite a long time.
Yeah. So for people who are hearing that weird American accent coming out of my friend's mouth, Paul used to sound like I do, because Paul and I are both from a town, well, the smallest city in England, Hereford, and then you left us and went to America, and now are the vice president of one of the biggest golf manufacturers in the world, and have no longer got this accent.
That's true. That's true. And now the accent's about halfway across the Atlantic. I'm not really belonging anywhere.
You sound like a Hallmark film. You don't sound full American. You don't sound full English. You sound like some really, really beautiful, homogenized, like Hallmark accent from one of those classic Christmas movies where the guy goes to the small town for an escape and falls in love, which is essentially what you did.
Pretty close. I don't think anyone's described my accent as beautiful before. I like that. I'll take it.
Well, for those that probably don't know, and if you will, Paul and I have known each other for many, many years. We grew up in a city called Hereford. Paul was, in fact, the person who I played my first or second, I say, round of golf. It was a 9-hole session at Brockington Golf Club with you, me, and Jack, and your dad.
No way. I was
Yeah,
going to tell the story that I think we also had our first adult game of cricket together. I think
we did.
my debut for the men's cricket, age 14, coincided with your debut, aged about 10 or 11. Because
Yeah,
someone didn't show up and you were the substitute fielder. It was yeah,
US Harold, wasn't it?
that was it. That
Yeah,
was
US Harold, US Harold, because there's the photo that goes around on social media every now and again of you and your dad and my dad at Webley when I was 10 and I wasn't yet playing for the men's team, and then the next season I was, and it was
wonderful.
and my dad loves to tell the story about the time that he broke your mother's collarbone on the Tuesday and blacked your eyes on the Saturday.
I've got a few battle scars from that cricket team. I do
Yeah,
hope some people listening in America who are trying to figure out what US Harold might be.
yeah. US Harold is a small village on the outskirts of Herefordshire on the Welsh border. Yeah, you were great. We'll talk about golf and ping and all that. That's what we want. But you were a very accomplished multidiscipline sportsman. You were a good cricketer, good hockey player. You've played international hockey representing the USA, which made me very sad as you switched allegiance. But hey, well done anyway. And you've played golf to a good standard as well. So sport's always been in your blood, isn't it? And for Dad was the same, and you grew up with a sporty father.
Yeah. Dad was a really good football player in particular, and then when he retired from football, he wanted to try some other sports, and so he was interested in cricket, and he was the reason I got into golf. He said, I want to learn golf and I need someone to play with. So I got roped in. But yeah, I've always liked loads of sports. Like you said, I'm good at quite a few sports without having ever been great at any of them. But it's a pleasure that I was able to make a career in sport because I wasn't going to do it as a professional sports player. So it's kind of nice to do it watching other people play good sport. But we
And
played a lot of cricket together, didn't we?
we did play a lot of cricket together, and obviously it was one of those things that you being sort of 3.5, 4 years old to me and going off to university kind of stopped that. So you stopped us playing more together. I think I would have been 14, you would have been 18, going off to St Andrews, and that kind of gets in the way then of playing anymore together. No, we had some really good fun years playing, and obviously your amazing late mother was a teacher, and she gave you that thirst for education, which is why you were not only a good sportsman, but you were annoyingly like a straight A student, and so you were able to do both, and then ended up taking those straight A's, getting great A levels, and you ended up at St Andrews University. So some might say that where you went to university, kind of the future was already written, right?
Yeah, maybe. There's certainly. I mean, I visited St Andrews when I was looking at universities and just fell in love with the town. It wasn't just the golf. Part of it was kind of taking a stroll down the beach to walk towards the middle of town and just how cool a place it is. But now that I've been in the golf industry for a long time, there's a lot of people who are jealous. I spent 7 years living in St Andrews and playing the courses for free. It's a great place. It really is.
And what's important there is that you didn't go to St Andrews University to become the vice president of engineering at Ping. You went actually to do something quite different in the world of science. Do you want to just give
Yeah.
because people,
So
it will blow people's minds. You now design what I call as one of the greatest cheating sticks in the world. That 430 is ridiculous. You can hit it off the toe or the heel and it still ends up straight. So apart from your witchcraft of club face design, what were you intending to do?
I don't, like everyone else going to university, or at least like 99% of people, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I think if you told me that I could make a living working on engineering golf clubs, I would have thought you were an idiot. But I went to do mathematics, and mathematics and economics was what I initially went to study, and then I switched to mathematics and philosophy, and I had grand visions of being a philosopher or something, like 18-year-olds do. But I was always good at mathematics and got offered a chance to stay there and study, just can focus on mathematics. And I ended up spending 3 years doing a PhD on solar flares, which are basically huge explosions like volcanoes on the sun, huge source of energy spikes. It's what causes things like the aurora borealis and stuff like that. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. I loved doing mathematics. I didn't dream that you could apply that to sport. And then it was sort of coming towards the end of that I, as we mentioned, I love sport, and I thought, how could I find a way to do research but still be in sport? And at the time, I didn't think that was even possible in something like cricket. I didn't think it was really possible in football, soccer, um, and but golf, I thought, I bet the golf companies might want a mathematician, and that's what happened. I wrote old fashioned, kind of wrote off to a few golf companies, and it just happened that Ping were sort of looking for a mathematician and came across me.
I think it's a great story of don't make assumptions of what you can do. Just do things and see what happens at times. I think carefully planning out. There will be people listening to this that they're not angry, but they're jealous of that story because they wanted to work for Ping, TaylorMade, whoever else it might be, and they tried to go a certain way and have not got where they wanted to be. And I think your story is a great example of be a great sportsman, understand sport, understand being part of a team. That's always great for being an employee and part leader. And then you just did so well at school, and then you went to a great university and applied yourself, and then just kept going. And I think so many people do so well just to go, actually, the vice president of engineering didn't go to university to do golf club engineering. You weren't an engineer and a physics major looking at how different types of metal offset against each other at different speeds. I know that doesn't make sense in what you do, but the grand scheme. What I'm trying to say is that
Oh, you're
some
right.
people have done that.
Yeah, no, and it's not lost on me how privileged a position this is. There's a lot of people that would dream of being golf club designers or golf club engineers, and not that many get to do it. Every now and again I get that imposter syndrome that other people more deserving. We probably all get that at some point. But my biggest advice would be get good enough at something to have a skill that people need, and in my case, being good enough at mathematics. And fortunately, most people hate mathematics and would much rather have someone else do it for them. And so for me, that was the way in, was having a skill that Ping felt like they needed and was useful. And then now I've been there a long time. I don't do a lot of mathematics. I do a lot more strategizing and managing and all that. But it was the being good at mathematics that got me the foot in the door.
So you got the foot in the door. You went to. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a podcast called the Society of Golf Historians. It's run by a guy called Connor. I
Yeah.
love it. Fantastic. And he's got a real affinity with Ping because he actually really loves the Ping story and about Carson. Do you want to just give the viewers who's not maybe aren't golf geeks, everyone who watches this knows I'm a golf geek. I get golf books for Christmas about course design. You even sent me a beautiful course design book ages ago. I can't remember what it's called, but I've got that at home and you sent that to me in the post.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
the non-golf geeks, let's just do, how did we go from Ping not existing to creating the putter, and then maybe can we do 2-3 minutes on perimeter weighting and why that was such a big thing in the development of Ping and irons?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So Karsten Solheim was an engineer from Norway who moved to the US when he was very young. So he was an engineer in the US. He actually worked for General Electric, among other things. Had quite a long career before he even thought about golf. And there's a book called Karsten's Way that kind of describes Karsten's life, so I don't need to go into all the details. But he was a businessman and an engineer. He'd been in sales. He actually, his name is on the original patent for the little bunny ears that would go on top of TVs in the old days, like the little antennas. He also worked on like landing gear on planes. So he kind of worked on all sorts of different things and started playing golf. This would have been the 1950s and wasn't great. And particularly wasn't great at putting and found it frustrating and basically was like, I think I could do a better job of designing a putter based on some engineering principles. That was his idea, was like, I feel like I'm never hitting it perfectly, and the worse I hit it, the worse results get, and maybe I can make it more forgiving. Forgiving meaning, in his case, when I hit it off the toe and the heel, I get more similar results. It like minimizes the damage for me. So his original idea was, I'm going to take, instead of putters at the time were very much a craft, and they were blades, like true blades. They looked great. They were a craftsman's thing, but they weren't using any engineering principles whatsoever. And
They were just strips of metal, weren't they? They were just strips of
yeah,
shaped metal.
and then similar to irons were the same, right? Irons were forged muscle back blades that were beautiful looking. I mean, they still look cool now, but they weren't applying a ton of engineering principles to like what happens when you slightly mishit it. And so his original idea, the 1A putter, was he just said, well, I'm going to, instead of having all the weight along a blade, I'm going to take two hunks of metal, put them at either end, and then have a face in between them. And he actually made it so you could hit it right or left-handed. So the 1A looks like a kind of tuning fork. It's two sheets of metal, and then most of the weight on the heel and toe. And the principle is moment of inertia. The more you spread the weight out, the more now when you hit it off center, it doesn't twist as much. A moment of inertia is like a resistance to twisting. So if I take my phone, right, and when I hit it in the middle, everything's great, nothing twists. But if I hit it out here, now that happens, right? And the more I put the weight on the outside, if I
Yeah.
take the phone and put the weight on the outside, it just won't twist as much when I hit off center. That applies to pretty much every golf shot you've ever hit in your life, because it almost never comes right out of the middle.
You say almost never.
Almost never.
Never.
No, this is why golf's great, right? Because everyone can think of a shot they hit not that long ago where like that was perfect. Now I just need to do that again, and it's what keeps you coming back, isn't it? But
Yeah. It's when you have that run of. So what do you play off for these days?
I play off a streaky 8.
Okay, so I play off a very streaky 8.5, 9.
There you go.
Like I've had some 5s recently. I've had some 12s, 15s recently. Like it's a very streaky 8.5, 9. But when you're in that groove and you go driver 8 iron to 12 feet, driver wedge to 15 feet, and then you go, maybe it's a par 3 and you go 6 iron to 25 feet, nestle the ball up close. You've had 3 pars in a row and you struck everything out in the middle. There is, I genuinely, we both played sport and I played a high level of cricket. There is no greater feeling in sport than that run of 3 or 4 holes where you just pure it out the middle and everything feels so easy. Obviously, then I'm going to push one 50 yards right and then fat one trying to get it back in, and then you're back down to earth. But no, there's no better feeling, is there?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's it, right? Sometimes for some players it happens for a whole round or two. For me, it's a couple of holes where it just feels easy, and then you lose it again, and you think, but it felt so easy. So how do I get back there? But that's what the company was founded on. Karsten had his idea for a putter. He built his idea for a putter. And he started going out and trying to show it to people. And he was able to go out on, I mean, one of the very early people he showed it to was Arnold Palmer, who his first putters were made out of brass, which is really soft. And Arnold Palmer hit a couple, dented the face, and said, I'm not playing that, it's dented. And I've seen that putter, the one that Arnold Palmer dented. So that's how far back it goes. That was 1959 when he started the company. And no one else was doing anything like that. No one was really applying engineering to golf. And, the putters started to get reasonably popular. And then when it really took off was when he developed the answer putter, which forever, I mean, if you've seen anybody on tour putting, it was usually some sort of copy of the answer putter.
Yeah, like I say this all the time when people talk about Scotty putters, they talk about so basically outside of mallets, about 85% of putters on tour are a derivation of that original answer design.
Because it works so well. And he came up with that in 1966. So it's been around for a long time. Um, Great year. Answer putters invented, England win the World Cup. I mean, what more could you want out of a year?
What a superb year.
But it has the same principles where it only has a single face, doesn't have a bag, but it's got the mass sort of concentrated down and in the heel and toe. It has amazing balance to it. It just the reason it stood the test of time is because it works for so many players. That's what really started to take things off. But he also applied the same in irons, and his first irons were blades where he was machining bits out of the middle. He actually, and which is a very expensive way to do it, but it was the only way he could at the time. So the early ping irons were blades where they'd machine bits out of the middle to spread the mass, and then eventually
That sounds labor intensive.
it is, yeah. So that's why he pioneered investment casting for golf. Like he didn't invent investment casting, but the big benefit of investment casting is you basically are pouring molten metal into a mold.
into the shape you want it to be.
You can make more exotic shapes. Back in the day, forging was you could make anything you like as long as it's a forged muscle back blade. Casting could make perimeter weighted irons. Again, spreading the mass, increasing moment of inertia, making them more forgiving. And he needed to use casting to do that. So that's why all ping irons were cast at that point. These days, it's a lot muddier that you can make pretty cool shapes using forging techniques. And we make our new iron that's coming out in the spring has it's forged, but it has a cavity back to it, and we can choose also to make cast irons out of soft metals and make them feel really soft. We can make a blade casting if we want. So these days you can kind of make what you like with forging and casting, but back in the day, that's what Karsten was doing. And so he was an engineer at heart. I mean, he was also a good salesman. He had years in the field. He was a salesman before he started at Ping, and so he knew how to sell the product. He knew how to work with tour players and get them to test it. But he was an engineer at heart, and his son, John A. Solheim, who was our CEO for about 30 years after Karsten passed away, he's an engineer. And then his son, John K. Solheim, who's our current CEO, my boss, he's an engineer too. The whole Solheim family are engineers, and I think that's what makes us a bit unique. We're a family-owned company, still owned by the Solheim family. Almost all of the Solheim family work at Ping. It feels very much like a family because it is. But ultimately, everything comes down to the engineering. So we're not, we don't invest as much as others in the marketing side, but we tell our story as engineers. That's why they put me on podcasts and things like that, because that's who we are, which is kind of fun. I mean, for a scientist, it's really fun, but that's why
You,
Ping's quirky
you've
and
taken that to a different stage as well, though, haven't you? Because like you're one of the few manufacturers of your own shaft that stands up against the shaft guys. I put that really poorly, but obviously everyone's got their own stock shafts, but you are one of the few firms where your stock shafts actually are right up there with the shaft specialist. And you see a lot of players on tour that play Ping gear still using a Ping shaft. You don't see that, and I'm not expecting you to berate your compatriots at other firms, but you don't see TaylorMade, Titleist, Callaway using their stock shafts, but you do see that a lot with Ping. What did you do in the shaft world? Because you're engineers, you've got perimeter weighting, got all that history there, but it felt like, how do I put this out? Being like I'm taking a mick. It felt like you guys, like a bit like Carson with the very first putter. I think we can do this just as well as you, if not better. It felt like you did that with the shaft.
yeah, that's it. I mean, we've always felt like we're making and selling the whole golf club. Obviously, the shaft and the grip is a big piece of that, and we just want to make the entire golf club the best it can possibly be. And tough thing is there is just a conception out there that companies like us, stock shafts are not great. You just kind of make them cheap, and that's never been the case for us. We've been super involved in everything about our shaft design and our shaft science. I mean, I remember for a long time, my early days at Ping, our shafts were designed, or at least designed in partnership by Marty Jurtson, who's now our VP of Fitting and Performance, and he's pretty well known around the industry. Played in a few majors, has designed a lot of our most iconic clubs, and now he runs our fitting and performance. He was very heavily involved with shaft design. We've had a whole team devoted to shaft design science. We have our own motion capture system that we funded and own the code to. It's called our focal system. That's genuinely the best measurement system in the whole of golf. And in large part, that was to understand what the shaft's doing during the swing, because it measures the whole swing and what happens when you're in the transition from the backswing to the downswing, so that we could understand shafts as well as anyone. And more recently, we actually, our director of shafts, John Oldenburg, he was the head guy designing shafts at Alderler for 20 years. And then more recently, LA Golf Shafts, and now with us. So we have one of the best shaft designers in the industry working at Ping designing our shafts. It annoys me when people call it the engine of the club. It's not the engine of the club, but it is very important. And a bad shaft can take a good head and mess up the results. A good shaft can't take a bad head and suddenly make it amazing. But having the wrong shaft in your club can really hamper you from playing good golf. And so for us, it's a natural fit that we design the shafts as well as the heads.
You're one of the few that actually manufacture all your own shafts as well, aren't you? Is that right?
We work with partners in Asia, so they're designed specifically to our specs. They're designed specifically in partnership with us. It's not hey, someone else designed it and it's made for Ping. It's our shaft, the same as it's. But we don't actually have our own shaft factory.
But what I mean is you got that design specific to you, working with the manufacturer, which is great. And I think so. I play sub 70 irons. Sorry, mate. I play sub 70 irons.
It's all good.
Mate, I love it. But I play the Ping 430 and the Ping 430 2 and 3 hybrid, and I play the Ping Glide 2.0 wedges. I remember messaging you about 2 years ago when that 430 came out, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. I sent you a message going, does this club conform? Because it feels like I'm cheating. And you said, are you hitting it off the toe? Where are you hitting it out of? I went everywhere. And you went, is it going straight? I went, yeah. And you went, what more do you want? like what more? And it does feel that for me, and I think you look around and that you talk to a lot of golfers. I talk to a lot of friends. I play a lot of golf. That there's a mixture of manufacturers dotting around everyone's bags, but I do see that more of my friendship group and more of the people I play with now do tend to have a Ping driver. The irons are mixed and match. Everyone has everybody. There do seem to be more Ping drives, more Ping hybrids around. And for a company that was heavily irons and heavily putters in the mind of if you'd said 20 years ago, name me the 3 or 4 most prolific driver manufacturers, I don't think Ping would have been in the social consciousness as that, but it does feel like it is now. And that must make you proud to see how that change has taken place.
Yeah. No, I think like you mentioned, we're a company that was founded as a putter company. And I think in the height of the I2 days, you would have said we were an irons company when we absolutely dominated the world of irons in the I2 days. Now our strongest area is metalwoods. And I would still stand by, we make amazing irons, we make amazing wedges and putters, but you're right. And the thing with metalwoods is, if you get the G430 and you go out and play with your friends and you're now hitting it, places on the golf course you weren't hitting it before, they notice that very quickly, probably more quickly than other clubs in the bag necessarily. something like your putter, the results speak for themselves over time, but it builds up over time. But with the driver, you can see it on the first round if someone suddenly gained 10 yards. And
And
now
it's
that,
also the dispersion. That's
yeah,
the big thing. Everyone in my group hits it sort of between 225 and 260, more near the 225 range. But it's the ping. I had the 410. No, I had the 420. Is it 420, the red one?
410 was the red one, and
410 was the red one.
yeah.
410, and then and I think the thing that I noticed with both of them, and that my brother-in-law's got one, a good dozen or so players I play with, is that dispersion. You can hit it off of center, and you can be a little bit wrong side of it, and the dispersion's so much better. I don't expect you to be able to explain to everyone how that works, but what is the concept behind how you're able to get that dispersion down? What is the thinking, and how?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest one is we go back to the moment of inertia. That with a driver, it's the lightest head in the bag. So it's the one where you have to work the hardest to spread the mass. I mean, I know people look at it and go, it's really big, but it's only a 200-gram head versus your putter, which is 350 grams, or your wedge, which is 290 grams. So you have to work that much harder. Every gram that you can spread out makes a big difference. And it also has to withstand the highest forces in the bag. You swing it the fastest. So that's why we use titanium. It's extremely strong. It's extremely light. Like the light becomes that much more important. That's why we use, carbon fiber. We've been judicious about how we use that because carbon fiber itself is very strong and light, but then you've got to glue it somehow to the titanium. So you end up adding some weight back in. Uh, John A. Solheim, our previous CEO, made a great comment in one of our meetings recently where he said, we're in the business of like moving weight around, which is a lot of what we do. We're like basically trying to figure out how do you move grams of weight around a golf club and still have it, perform, withstand your 90, 100, 110 mile an hour golf swing, but give you the best possible results when you miss hit it. So moment of inertia is the number one. There's a few other things we do. Exactly where you place the center of mass makes a difference. Where the sweet spot of the club is.
What are the aerofoils doing? Tell me about that, because I love them. I actually use them to line up, and I like them, and I love the matte finish. But talk to me about the aerofoils, because I think that a few people have said, "Oh, well, what can they do?" And again, I don't expect a mathematician who is the VP of Ping to be able to break it down in too quickly, but they're a fairly unique feature.
It was a fun project. It was one that I was involved in pretty heavily in early in my Ping career. So it's been going that long. They're called turbulators, and what they do, they're for aerodynamics. The quick version, if you don't want to get into the science, is they basically help you swing the club just a little bit faster because a golf club is not a very aerodynamic shape. If you want to make it something that you can swing fast, you don't put a big blunt face on it. You make it shaped more like a bullet. But then
Especially if you come from here and then cast it over the top and try and drag it back round.
so actually the drag on the head of the club makes a difference. I mean, we're not talking 10 miles an hour of swing speed, but we're talking 2, 3, 4 miles an hour of swing speed. If from a really poorly designed aerodynamic driver to a really well designed. And as it turns out, those turbulators are a way to they basically help the airflow stay attached to the club, but you don't get such a big wake. I think everyone's familiar with the idea of a wake on a boat. Like if you watch a boat going through the water, you have this wake. That's an area of it's an area where there's like a lower pressure and it's kind of sucking the boat, or in our case, the club back. What you want is to keep the airflow attached to the crown and the sole of the club as much as possible and reduce the size of the wake, and you get lower aerodynamics. And turbulators do that without us having to do something funky to the whole shape of the club. So it's kind of aerodynamics for free because we're not really adding any weight up there. We're not changing the overall shape of the club, but we're getting better aerodynamics. So the difference between them being on and off is about a mile an hour of swing speed, which is about 3 yards on every shot you hit. So that's part of your distance right there is the turbulators. But it enables us to keep with other things that help us keep the mass in a place we want to keep it.
And they look cool. I like them.
I think they look cool. It's a bit of in the eye of the beholder. When we first did them, we agonized over whether people would be okay with looking at them because golfers are usually quite traditional. And putting these little ridges on the crown of the club, some people hated them. But over time, people have decided they're okay, mostly. I think they look good, and I think they help you line it up. They help show you where the middle of the face is, but they're there for physics. That's the real reason they're there, is for the physics.
Well, talking about over time, people decide it's okay. Let's move on to the hot button topic that everyone loves to discuss, which is live and live golf. And obviously, with Callaway announcing that they're going to be sticking with John as he comes across, I think it's noticeable for me, having been to some live events, that Ping stuck by pretty much all their players, and you even provided resource the tour truck for Live London and a few other things. And I don't expect you to draw an opinion on behalf of the company about Live. That's not what I mean. But what I'm saying is that it's great to see that so many people have been using Ping. And I think what is a great indicator of your product is how many free agents on Live went to Ping, including Bryson and a few others for irons. And I think for me, having been there, you're probably the most used club manufacturer.
Yeah, I would say so, and I'll stay on safe turf as I give opinions on this, but we're a big relationship company, and most of the Ping players have been Ping players since they were kids and have stuck with us a long time. And if you look at the guys who went onto the Live Tour from Ping, these are big, long relationships. Bubba's been a Ping player forever. Louis Oosthuizen's been a Ping player forever. Lee Westwood's been a Ping player forever. I mean, even the younger guys like Jaco Neiman, I mean, he grew up, I don't think he's ever played anything other than Ping. So for us, it was a relatively easy decision to stick with them in terms of they're part of the family. We're a family company. They're part of the
Yeah.
family. It's caused us some challenges of just figuring out what does that look like. It's hard to plan out the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, if anyone knows exactly what the Live Tour is going to look like 3 years from now, if they could let me know, that would be really helpful, right? It is disruptive, but if there's people playing professional golf and they're Ping people, then we'll still support them. And like you said, we have a guy who's been supporting most of the events, and where it's changed the game a bit, and it was already going this way. The amount of money in professional golf, a lot more players, it makes sense for them to be free agents. That what we could pay them as a company maybe isn't as big as what they can make. If Liv's offering you 500 million, then whatever we could offer is nothing compared to that.
I
Not
was
that
really surprised by, outside of maybe some of the really top players. So my views on OWGR, I think, is a defunct system, but let's just take OWGR for the minute. I was really surprised by how little players between, say, 80 and 200 in OWGR actually get paid by manufacturers. I don't mean just Ping, I'm talking in general. I was actually quite surprised that getting the setup in your bag right with the clubs you want to have a better chance at winning is a financially better decision than taking an amount that people were getting paid to be a club representative. And I think that's what you're saying. Like, there's so much money around now. Pick the best clubs for you.
Yeah, I think I mean, let's just stick with on the PGA Tour, the elevated events. If winning an elevated event is worth 3.5 million, um, and it's similar on the Live Tour. That's if you think you can make decisions about what's in your bag to help you win that event. That's probably worth more than you're going to get from a lot of endorsements, unless you're one of the top guys. Um, that said, our job is to like convince people that like you can stick with Ping and know that you're going to have 14 clubs in your bag that are perfect for you. And there's still plenty of players that like to do that. But yeah, I think it's a good time to be a player. You definitely, you've got choices. You've got, you're not going to struggle to look after your family if you can make it onto the top tours. It's different. It's a lot harder work down in the mini tours, right? But we believe in our product and we think, hey, look, stick with us and you'll make sure that you get Ping clubs that you like all the way through the bag. But the reality is a lot more players are picking and choosing. They already were before Live. I think I counted up on the last Live event. There's at least one Ping club in over 30 bags out of 48, which was great. So that was
Yeah,
cool.
I've when I was in London, I think it was 20 players either had you as their metal wood setup or part of their metal wood setup, so like a hybrid or a utility iron or whatever it might be. I know a utility iron is a metal wood set, but you know what I mean. It's that long club, it's that hybrid, and that's in that same family. I was like, that's not a small amount of representation.
Not at all. Yeah, so that's been, I think probably just like everyone else, I'm personally as a golf fan just curious to see where it goes. It'll certainly make the majors interesting this year, as those will be the one set of events where everyone comes together. But who knows where things are going to go the next couple of years?
Yeah, I don't think anyone does. You're in a position where I'd never ask or draw an opinion from you that would be inflammatory. But I think we can all agree that the last 2 years in golf has been head scratching and different at times in certain decisions. And I think I speak for most golf fans that whether you're pro PGA, pro live, pro whatever, that it'd be really nice in the next 3 to 6 months to see things kind of start to work out on how it's going to go forward and just move on with golf a bit. Are you gonna dance together or not? Let's just make our mind up.
Yeah, well, yeah, like with any sport, I think most of the fans just want good opportunities to see the best players playing in the best format, whatever you think that is, right? But we can argue about what's the best formats and what's the best way to arrange it, but that's what people just want to see their favorite players competing against the best, and one way or another we'll get back there.
So the one big name, I suppose, that came over to you in all of that was Bryson, the mad scientist, as some people refer to him. I spent time with Bryson in London. Walked with him for 9 holes, chatting to him, and he had the ping irons in his bag. So, are you now one length iron manufacturers, or was that a new thing for you?
It wasn't totally new. We've done a few sets. So Bryson worked with Chris Como, the coach, for a long time, and Chris is a Ping ambassador and a good friend of mine. And so we've had some kind of relationship with Bryson for a while in terms of just knowing who he is and providing some advice to his coach from here and there. But he's fun to work with. He thinks deeply about his game. He works a ton. He's got tons of ideas. He's not willing to hit thousands of balls to try out these ideas. So for engineers, it's kind of fun to work with him. The one length irons have been around in one shape or another for a while. There's some challenges taking a set that were designed to not be one length and make them one length. But our team did an amazing job. We build our irons with lots of weight adjustment, flexibility, and you can do a lot with custom grinding and this and that. And so we took our regular set of our I series irons and made them into one length clubs for him and the wedges, and the wedges were great for him. It's cool to see. I mean, he's a free agent. We're not contracted with him. But if he's interested to work with us, we'll always be happy to do that.
Look, I think as always, you're very erudite and you speak well on that. And it's a case of he's chosen his bag. He's got different clubs in there, but he seems very happy. And since he's been using you as irons and wedges and the other brand, I can't remember their name for his driver, he seems to be very, very happy and ultimately very competitive. It was sort of that turnaround period. And so that was fantastic. And I think it's testament to what you guys are doing, that you have people want to work with you when you're not offering them money, they still want to work with you, and that's a really, really, really good indicator. I'm conscious that you're in the UK to work. Isn't it great? You're in the UK. I'm not having to do this at some silly time in the evening.
It is, yeah. I've just sat here in our. We have a little research team in Loughborough, which was set up a couple of years ago. So I come over here three or four times a year. Most of our engineering's in Phoenix, but now we have some engineers here in the UK as well, which is really fun.
Well, you're here. You've got work to do. So let me try and draw this to a close. People like to hear about our guests and some of their experiences. So you've had a chance to play some fantastic courses. What are your top 3 courses you've ever played?
Oh goodness, that's a tough one. Well, okay, so we'll try to keep it somewhat simple. Old course St Andrews. I played there for 7 years. I didn't play it all the time. I played all the courses in St Andrews a lot. Tried to keep the old course slightly special and not play it every day. Now that I don't live there, that seems like a terrible life decision. But I genuinely think you could play St Andrews for 50 years and not get bored of them. That's why they've stood the test of time. And the old course is just wonderful. A shout out to the new course as well, though. I love the new course. I did get a chance to play Pine Valley a couple of years ago. Absolutely incredible place. Every hole is memorable. It just wasn't something I thought I'd ever get a chance to do, and through a friend, got to play there for a weekend, and that was so. Pine Valley was absolutely amazing. I'm not exactly surprising anyone with that vote. The other one, which I just thought was probably rounding out my top three, was the course at Crans-sur-Sierre, where they host the Open in Switzerland every year.
Okay. Oh yeah. Is that the Omega Classic course?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Crans Montana or Crans-sur-Sierre, that halfway up a mountain in Switzerland overlooking the Alps. The setting's amazing, but the course is actually really, really good fun too. And those would be my top three.
It's also incredible when you think that course, it cannot be accessed for any form of maintenance for 4 months of the year.
Yeah, I don't even want to think how short their golf season is, because I mean it must take them a few months of kind of preparing the course.
So I read that it's 4.5 months to 5 months of being able to be used, that course.
Yeah, well,
Which is savage.
it is, but it was amazing. Absolutely wonderful place to just visit as well.
Best player that you've had the privilege of working with, just being up close and marveling. Like, you've been around all the best players in the world, way more than I have. But you've just stood there and gone, is it that easy, really?
Yeah, okay. That's I'm going to reinterpret it slightly because, like you said, I'm very lucky and I've had a chance to see most of the best players in the world up close, and obviously the ping folks I've worked with a lot. The one who maybe would surprise people a bit, who just I remember just blowing me away by how amazing his ball striking was Angel Cabrera, and he won two majors. He has that interesting stat that I think he won more majors than non-major PGA Tour events in his career. But his ball striking was unbelievable. One quick story: I remember we've got him on the range at Ping, and we're taking some data. We've got a prototype that we're showing him, and we've got we're trying to take TrackMan data, so we're in the radar, and he's aimed at a different point on the range than we're after, and so we're trying to very politely, hey, Mr. Cabrera, do you think you could just, and we're working through his interpreter because he doesn't speak a lot of English, and he goes, what? If you wouldn't mind aiming at that flag, it's about 320 yards down the range, that little red flag, that's your target line. If you could aim at that, we'd be great. He goes, okay. He's hitting drivers off the deck, by the way, at this point. Hits his next shot, smashes it.
As you do, just casually sitting drivers off the deck, just to
smashes it into the flag. I mean, the target this big, right? He hits the flag on the full, and he just turns around and goes, "Is that okay, boss?" Yeah, that worked. That was.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah. Yeah, that is an answer I suppose did take me by surprise. Because obviously you got Bubba, the great shot shaper. You got Louis, whose timing's like silk. You've got all those players, and that's I think that'll take everyone by surprise, and that's a great story.
Favorite. There's been so many good ball strikers. We've had a lot
and different. Like this is what I tell people about. I said I can't imagine. I was talking to John. I said I've got you coming on the podcast. And I said, we're talking about club manufacturing. I said, can you imagine trying to manufacture a golf club that works the same for the same swing as Louis, Bubba, and Tony Finau? Like, talk about three. Tony takes the club back about 4 inches, Bubba's looping it anywhere he wants, trying to shape it, and Louis like a metronome, and you somehow have got to design a club that works for all of them. Obviously, it's the point of impact that matters. They get it back to square. I know that, but the point is that golf manufacturing at times you must go, how a club works in the hands of all of these people? It almost defies belief.
And that's about as good an advert for club fitting as you could possibly imagine. I mean, you know for a fact that all those players are playing vastly different, like fitted setups of their clubs, and you're not as good as we are, not as good as them, and we think it's fine just to buy clubs off the rack and not get them tuned to our swing. Getting a decent club fitting is so important. Like the pros get their clubs tweaked every week, and they're all amazing at golf. So my biggest advice to anyone out there is find the best club fitter you can. That'll be worth a ton to your golf game, and by ping, obviously.
Yeah, you got two things there. You've got by ping and two quick last ones before I let you go. If you got the choice, you got 90 minutes spare, which I know you never have 90 minutes spare, but let's imagine that you did somehow. Your wife and two lovely daughters are off somewhere for a couple of days, and there was a power cut at the factory, and you had to go home. I'm trying to engineer you some way of getting you 90 minutes free, because I know with your life you don't. Are you going to go to the range, or are you going to play 9 holes on your own?
Oh, I'd be 9 holes on my own all day long. I've learned to appreciate the range and how you can make that fun and interesting. But I grew up much more in the let's go play golf camp.
Yeah, that's the right answer. Only one pro out of all the people we've spoken to has gone 9 holes. Some people said depends how I feel. Some people have said range. Eugenio Shikara is the only person who went, no, straight 9 holes. Don't want to play on the range. I'll do the range if I have to. It's bizarre. It's just one pro. People said I'll play 9. I'll play on my own. Depends how I feel. But only one pro has gone flat out. I'm going to have 9 holes. Isn't that amazing? Like that. I thought Morden would just want to play golf.
I mean, yeah, I suspect that Bubba would say 9 holes, or at least when I've talked to him, he's definitely a on the course kind of golfer from my memory. But I think if you're a professional, you've probably spent so many hours on the range. I'm not a professional. I don't grind on the range as much. I get to do player tests at Ping, which is really fun. But playing the sport's always been more fun than practicing for all sports I play, for me.
Oh, and also for me, watching, like I've never I like watching sport, but I've never understood people. I can't play golf, mate. England are playing football in in a group match at the World Cup. I'm like, what? You're going to turn down playing sport to watch it? Never understood that either, but maybe that's just me. So we finished our round of golf, and you've got a choice. What meal are you going to go for? What drink are you going to go for? What's your post-golf beverage and meal of choice?
Oh, goodness me. Post golf. See, I would normally always say a curry. I don't know that a curry is like exactly what I'd think right after a round of golf, but yeah, I'd probably just you know, go get a club sandwich or something and have a nice, especially now I'm back here, a nice English bitter. That's something I miss when I'm in America. America has a lot more good beers than it used to, but they don't make the English style beers.
No, you don't get a proper bitter, do you, or a proper ale? It's all
So
IPAs.
that's something I miss.
Do they do half and half chips and rice in America with a curry or not? That's a British thing?
I think that's a British thing. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Right. To our viewers who are like, are they going to go into more British and American stuff? No, we're not. Paul, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful. It's been amazing seeing my friend from my hometown go from studying solar flares to being the vice president of one of the biggest names in all of golf. Stas, it sounds really proud of you. What an amazing achievement. And just think that what you guys do over there is fantastic. So thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Looking forward to we'll go out and play 18 holes ourselves at some point.
Well, I will be in the US a couple of times. We're talking maybe professionally about having some presence in the US for my actual firm. So if I do, I'll make sure I hit you up, and I'll probably try and base any office I can in Raleigh, because why wouldn't I want to be there? And just play Tobacco Road and Pinehurst all the time.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Take care. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Let us know what you think in the comments. As I always say, if you like it, comment. If you don't like it, comment. It still helps the algorithm. So thank you, everybody. And Mark will give you a great outro, better than I can. And he will introduce our next interview, which is the amazing Billy Gowing of Fair Play Exchange. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.